to the public as required by statute. The municipal clerk is directed to include a statement in the minutes of this meeting. Madam Clerk, are there any review changes to the agenda?
No, Mayor.
Thank you. We now open up the meeting for public comment. Public comment should only be on agenda items only. Please do not come up and ask questions of the commissioners. So if you have a comment on the agenda item, step up to the mic, limit your comments to 5 minutes, and please give us your name and your address. Seeing no one, I close the public comment part of the agenda on the agenda items. Old business, please.
Mayor, I don't have any old business.
All right, discussions of commissioners. Commissioner Davis.
Nothing this time, Mayor.
Commissioner Sui?
I'm sorry, under public affairs, but I had really set that up, so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that,
Was it 6 and 7?
Yeah,
So,
because you called him, right, for number 8, Public Works is
right,
Commissioner
okay.
Ennis, so he's not here, so are we skipping that stuff?
He's
So
on
we'll
his way. He's going to be here 10 minutes from now.
Okay, so.
Thank you. So we'll go right into the Department of Public Works. Is that what you're saying?
That's Ennis, so Public Affairs was.
Public Affairs.
Right, I had called for Mr. When I had Public Affairs,
Right,
I'm sorry. He's going to talk to us about an
Mr.
idea.
Miley?
Yes,
Okay.
what to do with the city.
All right, step up to the mic, please.
Okay, good evening.
If you could just step.
Need to go from there?
Yeah.
Did we do
lectern.
something different with the sound system?
Sounds.
We turned it up for the microphones
It
because some
sounds-
of them were a little, yeah,
I think that's a good idea.
so about 6 inches
Better
away.
here,
should be
recording,
perfect.
can
Good,
there, okay.
very good.
So what we're going to discuss is the designation of the city as an area in need of rehabilitation. And let me just try to set the stage for this. The redevelopment laws, which the city has touched on in a couple different projects and done redevelopment designations. The redevelopment designation is an involved process. It is, in essence, blighting an area. And it's a process that goes through the planning board, goes through the governing body, involves pretty detailed analysis against a criteria that's laid out in the statute. Redevelopment, it has what I'll refer to as a little brother. The little brother is rehabilitation, okay? A rehabilitation designation is much simpler, much more objective, much easier to accomplish and to achieve. In rehabilitation areas, the city has all of the same additional powers of redevelopment except for 2. You don't have the power of eminent domain, and you don't have the power of long-term tax abatement, okay? But what a city does have is additional ability to change zoning in response to specific projects. In addition to either help financially or work with businesses to achieve some of their financial goals, developers' financial goals to develop. Everything that you can do in a redevelopment area, you can do in a rehab area, except for eminent domain and long-term exemption, okay? It is, in kind of a lot of places where we represent, we encourage, and we've actually moved to designate the entirety of the town as a rehabilitation area. It saves a lot of time when you get a developer to comes in with a project, and they like this parcel of land and they would like to do something with it. What happens a lot of the time is, okay, it's not a rehabilitation or redevelopment area, so we have to go through that process before we can do the deal with you about making this project happen. When you designate the entirety of the city, which I'll tell you under the state law, it specifically recognizes that entire municipalities may be designated as rehabilitation areas, okay? So when you do that, then you've basically just set the stage. You've just set the stage so that you're empowered with all of these additional authorities and abilities, and now when a developer comes in anywhere in town, you've already advanced the ball. You're already far ahead, and you can begin working on whatever that project is and seeing what the city can do to help make that project happen, okay? It is a process that it's a resolution that does the designation. It's about as simple as a municipal action can be.
Wow.
It's a little bit of a strange resolution, the process of the resolution, because while it's a resolution, there's also a requirement in the statute that the planning board consider the designation and make a recommendation back to the governing body, okay? So what we do, the process that gets used quite often is, if you're so inclined, we would provide a resolution for your next meeting, for your December 20 meeting, and that resolution would simply refer to the planning board a draft rehabilitation designation resolution, ask them to consider it, and then they would either say yay or nay and recommend it back to the governing body. They make recommendations. You don't have to follow them. You're able to go beyond what they recommend, but they have to take a look at it, okay? We've already spoken with Sally Birdsall, the city's planner. Sally has put together a page-and-a-half little report. One of the criteria for designating the city a rehabilitation area is that more than 50% of the housing stock is at least 50 years old, okay? And she's gone over your tax records, and she's given me a little report that says, I think it's like 62% of your housing stock is more than 50 years old. That satisfies the criteria for the designation of the city, and you have the statutory ability to designate the entire city as a rehab area. So that's what the process is. It's one that we strongly recommend that you do. I would just note that it is also a process that takes money out of the pockets of your redevelopment attorney, because we would very much rather have you do it piecemeal, because every time somebody comes in and does, a little parcel of land, we would help take you through that process. This kind of shortcuts it. You do it once, you're set, ready to go. Then the only time you have to make any changes, I'll give you an example. We just did it 3-4 months ago in Galloway Township. And Galloway, we designated the entire township, but now we have a tract of land where we're going to do a redevelopment designation, because there's a chance for some bigger development that may need that long-term abatement. And so we're designating it, even within the rehab area, some additional redevelopment areas. Rehab is going to get you 90% of the benefits that you need, and it'll have you all set and ready to go right out of the bat. Okay?
Is there any downside?
There's absolutely no downside whatsoever. Collingswood, Glassboro, Mount Holly, Galloway, they've all been designated rehab areas, the entire town, and we've used it in ways that you can't even anticipate. In Collingswood, we did a rebate program, but you're not allowed to do rebate programs. So we did it as a redevelopment program with every household in town to return money to folks out of the profit we made on a redevelopment project. Okay, could only be done because it's all rehab area, and we made it fit. There's just so many benefits to it. It gives you much greater flexibility in operations on redevelopment across the board.
And does the planning board have to vote? Say the planning board decided no. Does that matter?
They don't. No.
So we can still pass it. They just have to look at it.
You could, yes, and they're limited to reviewing as to whether or not it's consistent with your master plan. That's what their review is. Okay, which for rehabilitation, it's improving and making everything better. It's always consistent with the master plan, but they have to look at it.
And then the areas that are already a redevelopment, like the Wheaton property, that would stay a redevelopment. We don't have to take that away and redo it. We
No,
can
it
still
all
leave
stays
that
that
in
way.
place.
It all stays that way.
Okay.
And there's one other step to this process. So if we go through this rehabilitation designation process, okay, then what we need to do to complete the process is adopt a redevelopment plan, okay? Now, that redevelopment plan, I've seen a lot of the redevelopment plans the city has. A lot of them are very detailed. They lay out kind of every specific plan that's thought of for different areas and regions. That's not what this plan would be, okay? The plan I'm talking about here is simply one that, in order to get have the city be empowered with all these redevelopment powers, you have to have I'd say a small P plan adopted, okay? So what we do with this is we would do a redevelopment plan that's for the city that simply incorporates all the existing zoning and all of the existing redevelopment plans, okay? It would not change anything. That plan has to have certain boilerplate in it. about consistency with the master plan. It has to say if any redevelopment project eliminates affordable housing, that will make other provisions for the affordable housing. There's just a bunch of things it has to recite and say.
Jim, does that plan have to go to the planning board
The
also?
plan also, on a separate track,
So
would
there's
go to
two
the
separate
planning
trips
board.
to the planning board.
It would
during
go to the
this
planning
process.
board. The planning board would make a determination if it's consistent with the master plan, okay? Which, there's no change to your zoning in that redevelopment plan, so it's gonna be consistent with your master plan, and then it comes back and you adopt that by ordinance. So it's all of this is just a couple procedural steps to put you in position so that when a project comes in, you're ready to react and ready to take action. You don't have to go begin a 90, 120-day process to put to put those powers in your arsenal. Okay?
And just to let everybody know, when we're redoing the master plan, the recommendation of the master plan, that's going to be presented at the January 15th meeting of the planning board. I think they're going to look at it this time and hopefully approve it in the 15th in January. Part of that was to get rid of all the previous redevelopment plans and to have you do a generic redevelopment plan anyhow. So I'm assuming what you're talking about will also fit right in with doing the replacement one for the master plan. So we would be doing it anyhow.
Yeah, if that's the plan, that's exactly that.
Okay.
It's kind of, there's two different thoughts about redevelopment plans. One is to do real site-specific, take a neighborhood and reimagine the neighborhood and put a lot of work and effort into it. What our experience is, usually by the time you get done doing that process, the marketplace has changed, and a lot of times what planners and the public put together about what they would like to see there, a whole lot of it isn't realistic financially. So a lot of what we do, the more specific plans, are kind of when a developer comes in and has made a presentation to the governing body, and you've bought in, like you like this project, and you're now working with someone who's going to build this project, that then we would adapt a redevelopment plan to make this project work, okay? It's just a little bit of a different process. There's values and there's drawbacks on both of them, but it's just a way to work more realistically off with existing development groups that they're going to build this plan the way they're laying out for you. Okay?
I mean, on the planning board side of it, we have had comments or complaints and issues that everything is too complicated with the way it's set up. So from what I'm hearing, this would be a step in the direction along with the master plan and changing the zoning to make things simpler. I mean, I realize the zoning's separate from this.
Yeah, the zoning, we haven't really been involved in the, I don't know what's going on with the zoning stuff.
Right.
But I can tell you in the redevelopment process, doing the rehab designation, absolutely, it makes it quicker when you get someone in that would like to develop a parcel. You're now ready to go. You don't spend 3-4 months and say to them, well, look, we have to do this, we have to do that. But if we get through that process, then we're all set. You just start out at square one and say, we're ready to rock. Yeah, we're ready to roll.
So you could have the resolution prepared for the next meeting.
Yeah, I looked on the calendar. December 20 is your next meeting?
Yes, that's right.
Okay. So we could have the resolution it would be a resolution referring it, as well as a draft resolution for your designation, okay, which is what you'll ask the planning board to look at. And then a part of that will be Sally Birdsall's, like I said, it's a 1.5-page little report, just saying that you've got housing that's, more than 50% of your housing is more than 50 years old, okay? And that satisfies one of the criteria, and you only need to satisfy one, and that's it.
And then we come back then in, because the January 15th would be the planning board meeting, the one.
That we be at that, and then after that, you'll be back here for the designation.
And then we would, okay.
And we would probably, for that meeting, if it's later in January, we would probably also have for you then an ordinance that would introduce the plan.
The
small
redevelopment plan.
Rehabilitation plan.
That just incorporates all your underlying zoning.
Which would also fit in with the master plan, so that's good.
So
And it has to go back to the planning board for
Right.
consistency determination.
Okay. And then when are the meetings in January? I'm just curious when the first, I don't know how.
so there's no point in waiting because we could always stop it later.
Oh, all you would do on December 20 is refer it for the planning board to look at it. you're not,
Approving.
you're not doing any official action.
Okay.
Other than asking the planning board to take a look. That's it.
Well, I don't know, I'd like to see that resolution prepared
Well, and a lot of it coincides with what we're already doing.
with the zoning.
So
yes.
it would all have to be done, a lot of it would be done anyhow.
Yeah, we'll talk to the planning board, you know, if you adopt this and refer it over, I'll touch base with their attorney and we'll confer on it and I'll, you know, make sure we coordinate and get it, you know, get it all square. And make sure certainly there's not any conflict with it. But this is, the process I'm talking about when we get to that redevelopment plan would not be changing any zoning. So
Right,
to
I
the extent
understand.
your master plan review is contemplating some kind of zoning changes, that can go on that track and this would not affect any of
And
that.
vice versa, what we do with the zoning won't affect this if
It
it's
won't
in place
affect
here.
it.
So either way.
It'll just, whatever your zoning and that process with the master plan is, it will be that, and that's all, you know, that will be the deciding factor about what your zoning is. This redevelopment plan we're talking about here will just say, whatever they adopted over there, that's what the law is.
Okay. Yeah, do you know, Jeannie, when the January meetings are? I didn't bring my count. 3 and 17 and 15. Oh, all right, so if the planning board meeting was January 15th, the next commission meeting is the 17th.
You got it. We can
So it
have
would
it all
work.
for that. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Anybody else on it?
Oh, I don't know. How's everybody else feel?
It's a great idea, Mr. Malley. I know you put a lot of time, and I know you have a great background in this kind of work, so I appreciate it, and it looks good to me.
Thanks. Thanks. Yeah, it works.
If I may add, I know that when we've had meetings with developers or realtors, like the James Hurley tract, that 200 or 300 acre tract, the first question is this in a redevelopment zone? Sometimes we don't know the answer to that, and it's better if you can tell them, yes, it is, and this is what the restrictions are or aren't. I mean, that could really be helpful.
Yep, absolutely. It really speeds things up a lot. And it also gives a signal out, like when you'll get press coverage that you're doing this, and it sends a signal out that, you know, we've now got, you know, more arrows in the quiver. We're ready to go. Come in. We're ready to rock and roll.
Great.
Okay?
Thank you.
All right,
You got it. You
So
got
you're
it.
gonna,
Thanks.
you'll proceed
Yeah,
then.
we'll get it all together and get it.
Okay.
We'll submit it into the clerk and to Regina, and we'll get it all going along.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Any
you
other
got it.
questions from Mr. Malley? Anyone? No? All right, thank you. Anything else, Commissioner? Public Works? Anything else? Anything else?
Public Works Commissioner Ennis is here now.
Commissioner Ennis, anything else?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Just want to follow up with the work session agenda. As you can see, under 7.1, the projects which overlap two departments that require both of the respective commissioners' consent for approval. I want to talk about that because Wayne Johnson is a contractual employee, so to speak, and we kind of share him. But I'm noticing that a lot of times when decisions are made, they're not made that include my opinion or my perspective. Things are just done, and decisions are just made as if Wayne is the responsibility of Commissioner Joe Suey, and we share him. So going forward in 2017, I want to make sure that we understand that he's not pocketed for just one particular commission. We have to share his person and his ability. There are several things with Wayne that I'm concerned about. And one of those things is when he was hired, I intentionally put him in charge of making decisions, because one of the things that I noticed was that it seemed to me that many of the employees here just didn't understand how to do their jobs. And there were places where there seemed to be a lack of discipline and a lack of oversight. Wayne brought with him not only experience, but he brought a standard with him that I think this city really needed. It needed it emphatically. Well, he's been removed from that. He can't make any decisions when it comes to personnel. He can't correct people when they're wrong. And we're constantly now running into pushback from employees who've been made aware of that, well, since you're a contracted employee, you really can't tell us what to do. So now we're running into situations where employees are reverting back to some of their old habits because there's no oversight. I can't tell them what to do because under our current policy, when a commissioner brings some thought to the table as to what employees should be doing, what happens is they file a grievance, which is something that needs to be done away with. Because personally, I didn't get elected to discipline people. We got elected to enforce policy and to create policy and to oversee the budget. I personally don't think that commissioners should be involved with disciplining people. I think that's where you have department heads that you respect and that are hired to do a job and can do it and do it well. Under our situation, that doesn't happen because a lot of times you have department heads who've been left to supervise, who probably don't really understand supervision, or they haven't been trained to supervise. In Wayne's particular area, he brings experience with him, but now he's been prohibited from being able to execute what he needs to execute to make sure that we're bringing this city up. I'm concerned because it seems, again, that when decisions are made concerning anything that pertains to Wayne, I'm totally cut out of that. And that needs to come to a stop. We need to talk about that because we have to share what Wayne does and who Wayne is. He doesn't belong to just one commissioner. So it came to my attention, and like I said, I spent over a year trying to improve some things in this city that are out of control, and we were making great progress. That's all been interrupted because I'm told that civil service doesn't think too much of the fact that we have Wayne involved in policy making with the employees and discipline. I called civil service. They could care 2 cents about what we do with Wayne as it pertains to enforcing discipline. That's our decision. And if we're willing to let him get involved, civil service doesn't care. That's something that we need to take control of. And I can tell you, folks, we need supervision. And we need supervision that comes with a standard. So there's a couple of concerns that I have concerning Wayne Johnson. I think he's an outstanding engineer. I think that he brings a standard to this city that it was much needed. In my personal opinion, it was a standard that was much needed. My greatest fear is that we will run the risk of losing him because of some of the nuance and some of the pushback that I'm starting to see coming into fruition because of personality conflicts and so forth and so on. So I don't think I need to elaborate on it any further. I think most people who are here that are privy to it understand exactly where I'm coming from. But if we want to expound on it, we can. But I just want to make sure that we understand that I want Wayne involved. Anything that pertains to water and sewer, I want him involved. Because Wayne not only brings a standard, but he studies. And he has discovered a plethora of wrongs that were swept under the rug. And if we're going to ever become a city that does well and exceeds, we can't continue to sweep things under the rug. If the man is here doing a job, we ought to respect the fact that he's here and allow him to do it effectively. Am I making sense to you?
No, you're not, and I'll
Well,
explain why.
Hold on. Okay.
I'll explain why when
Yeah,
you're
well,
ready.
talk to me. Give me some insight, Dr. Suey.
Okay, first of all, Mr. Johnson is a consultant under a contract for engineering services at the rate of $80 per hour. Engineering services, not employment services, not HR, not civil service, not the disciplinary process. Pam called civil service. Civil service said absolutely not should a contractor be involved in the disciplinary process.
Opinion?
I spoke to the labor attorney. Absolutely not should a contractor be involved in the disciplinary process. The reason, and there's a reason for that, his expertise is in engineering, and he is a great engineer. He doesn't have experience in the civil service or public employee disciplinary process. He has it in the private sector where you can just fire somebody, but not here. You wish to eliminate grievances. Well, you're going to overturn, I don't know how many years of labor law by trying to eliminate grievances, which we don't have the power to do even if we want to. Second, you have department heads to take care of your disciplinary problems and your management problems. In fact, you promoted one gentleman who now makes $89,277.08 a year to take care of your problems, your disciplinary problems, and run your department. You promoted another individual that now makes $70,553.49 a year to assist him. You have people to do that job. You have the advice. of the HR person, and she's here. She can tell you what civil service said, and I would ask you to do so. So would you please tell us what civil service said about a contractor doing that?
I know what they said. I don't
Please,
need her to
would you?
tell me.
I'd like to hear what they said.
Okay, what did they say? You're on the record.
Pam, can you stand up, please, and just identify yourself? Thank you.
She-
I did call the civil service commission, and I did ask them that, should a contractor be involved in any disciplinary action that comes to our employees? And they said no. They said because the person is a contractor and they're not a employee of the city of Millville, they saw a lot of interference with the union and such, and the person not being actually employed by the city of Millville as an employee. So they highly advised us not to use our contractor and said no to that for any disciplinary reason.
Now, second, his contract is for engineering services at $80 an hour. He's worth every penny for $80 an hour for engineering services. However, when you use them for other services, such as HR, and you try to use them for disciplinary purposes or even job interviews for something such as a laborer, I could see why you might want him there if you're interviewing an engineer or you're interviewing the superintendent of your water authority or your water utility or your sewer utility. But for a laborer, you're going to tie up a guy for $80 an hour, and then we're going to have to, as we have to today, vote to approve more money to pay for that stuff, which is not necessary. You have an HR person. You have HR at your disposal. You have the labor attorney at your disposal. You have civil service at your disposal to guide you through that process. Now, I understand you might not want to get involved in the disciplinary process. I understand where you may not want to do that. I myself have had grievances filed. I survived. The complaints filed. I survived. It goes with the territory. It's unfortunate, but it goes with the territory.
I'm not talking about, if I may.
Well, I'd like to
Commissioner-
finish, but go ahead.
Well, no, you go ahead, sir.
No, please.
Well, since you've opened up the door about human services, and Pam, since you're here, how much experience did you bring with you with civil service? When they hired you here, how much background did you have working along with civil service? Would you please share that information? Okay. So what happens is when you hire a person who has no experience in a field, that means that they are left to depend on someone else.
Wait a minute,
guidance.
not in the field.
Well,
there's
civil
let me
service.
explain something to you first of all, okay? There are many similarities in human resources through both the private and the public sector. There aren't many between engineering and human resources. So to get that straight, anybody can learn civil service.
Well, they can.
It's not rocket science. They can learn it.
They can. I agree with you, Commissioner Suey, but I've been here just as you have for 3 years, and I'm speaking from observation and experiences. And nothing against Pam, but I know that Pam did not bring with her the experience that was necessary to effectively lead this municipality. At $84,000 a year, we shouldn't have to do that. She depends on your guidance.
Hold on. Commissioner, this is what I like to see. We have all this information in reference to civil service. I have to stop you, Commissioner Ennis, because we're talking about one of our employees. And I don't think this is the proper place to be talking about one of our employees in public. The second thing is, if we have all this evidence from civil service, let's get it in writing. Let's get some factual writing material that would allow all of us as commissioners to review it and make our own decision. I think that's the right way we're going to go. I have nothing else to say, and I think this conversation should be over because I'm not going to allow anyone to speak about one of our employees or two of our employees. I think this is not the arena for it. Do we agree?
Well, there's one thing I will beg to differ with you, and that is employees and their salaries are public information.
I understand that, but we have employees that are here that we have identified by name,
They haven't been right.
and I don't agree with that.
I agree.
Thank you. So let's move on.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome.
The second issue that I want to talk about is our hiring process. Again, these are areas that I've observed for 3 years of people who have applied for employment here, who are qualified and educated. I have several applications with me of people who have applied for positions here at City Hall who were never even given a fair opportunity to come to the table for an interview. I think the days are long gone when we hire relatives, cousins, sisters, brothers, and friends and associates. And we don't want to call it nepotism, but it is. I don't understand how we do hiring here. Again, if we have a human resources department, every application should be funneled through that department. That's not how it's done here. What happens is someone can go to the website, download an application. Once they get it, they go to a department head that they know, a friend, a relative, or a neighbor, and they push it off to them, and then they start their own process of who they think should have that job. I don't feel that. I have a problem.
Hold on.
I have a problem with that. I currently have 3 individuals who've applied for employment here, and I don't think either one of those applications came through the personnel department, as it was brought to my attention. The applications were given to someone in the water department, and they pretty much got together and said, this is who we want to hire. All I'm trying to get you to understand is that if we're going to be a fair city, we should give fair people an opportunity to get hired here. And as I've looked, I keep reiterating this because I want everyone to understand. I've been here my entire life, and I've seen. And it's a shame when you have a city where everybody's last name sort of looks the same. There's something wrong with that. We need to become fair in our employment practices. And again, I have multiple applications of people who have applied for jobs here, never even got a chance. And these are educated people. These are people who are qualified, who specialize in certain fields, who never even get a chance to come to an interview. Maybe there is no opening at the time they apply. But when an opening does come, there's no door of opportunity for that person, because I've got relatives and friends and associates that I'd rather have hired than people who live in this community who may be able to bring something to the table that could help to boost this city and take it to the next level. I'd like to see a protocol for hiring, because honestly, the current protocol that we have is not healthy for a city that's trying to transition into becoming a healthy city where everybody can be evaluated or can be appreciated. I don't think the current hiring system we have is working. And again, I have proof here. I have applicants, several, who have applied for positions who never even got a thank you. In today's economy, when you apply for a job, they at least send you an email. They send you something acknowledging the fact that you at least thought of their business or industry worthy enough for you to even apply. So to say nothing back to them, I think it's kind of antiquated, and it's probably pre-modernity. We need to eliminate that, and we need to start coming up to par with how we relate to people who are trying to get hired here. And I guess that doesn't make sense either, but it makes sense to me because I've seen it. I've seen too many people who are hired here.
Commissioner, before I speak, hold on. Commissioner, what I would like you to do is give those applications to me.
Okay.
And I'll make sure that they go where they got to go, and we'll look at them.
Thank you.
I think that would be the best response, and I think that would be the quickest response, because I'll definitely have them looked at.
Thank you.
Okay?
I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No,
I wanted to explain how I hire people. And I don't care if somebody gives me a job application or resume directly, or they bring it out to 15th Street and hand it to somebody. I turn it over to HR. Then we go through the resumes or the applications to determine who's going to get an interview. In most cases, unless it's for a boss's job, then I don't even sit in on the interview. The department head will sit in on the interview and do the interview. You may want to adopt this in the water utility since it's under you. And then the decision is made on who to hire. They send it up. I look at it and say, okay. And I have yet to say, no, don't hire that person. So that's how the process should work. I don't understand why it's not working somewhere else.
If I could,
now, there
Mayor.
are times we don't give everybody an interview. You are correct on that. We review the applications.
If I could, I know in this particular instance, Pam is over-inundated with things going on in payroll, so she couldn't.
David, let's use HR.
Okay, so
Thank
human
you.
resources.
Payroll?
Right.
Okay.
So they couldn't give the attention to the hiring process that was needed because they're in other areas. Personally, I think when you have a human resources department, they should be solely responsible for who gets hired. They should be at every interview. I don't think you can hire people when the people who you have paid to run human resources and run personnel is not at the table. How can you do that? I don't understand.
No, I don't even know what to say, so.
Well, you probably don't.
I'll stop.
All right, Commissioner Parecka-Comperi.
I know that what we've done is we post the position in-house. Then what we do is we also post it online at the same time. We wait until the deadline's up. We look at the resumes. We go through them. If we know some of the references, we will call them and check on them and then determine who we want to interview. And then we have the interview process. I don't go to all the interviews either. It depends on what it is for. So I don't know. And if anyone has asked me to give me a resume or something for a job, I just tell them to contact Pam directly. I don't want anything going through me.
Exactly.
So I'm not sure exactly. I know of some issues that people have been hired and the process was not followed. Has not been in my department. So besides those two that come to my mind, I really am not sure what you're talking about.
Well, I think, and again, for me, anybody that I've hired, I've tried to follow the proper protocol.
That's not true.
I don't think anyone can deny the fact that for years and years and years, certain commissioners have hired who they wanted rather than who's needed. And anybody that says that they haven't seen that, then I don't understand it, because we know that that's going on. I've tried to not do that because as a commissioner, I don't want to be involved in who is most qualified for this job. You need to have a human resources department that handles that, and I've tried to stick to that. So when people come to me and they stop me, and I've had employees, I've had everybody stopping me with applications. This is for my nephew, this is my grandchild. I said, let me stop you right there. I am not human resources, and I'm not personnel. And I'm not going to hire your nephew just because you work here. If you want them to be hired, have them to fill out an application just like everybody else, and let personnel handle it. But that doesn't happen in every case. I'm sorry, but it doesn't.
You do the same thing for promotions too, right?
Absolutely.
Who, I do?
No,
Oh.
different matters, okay.
I think that we've come to a conclusion here that Commissioner Ennis has a problem with our hiring process. He's going to hand me those 3 applications, and I will take care of it. If there is an opening for those positions, we will take care of it. They will go to Pam. Just so you know, and this is just for, I guess, food for thought, the way I do it, of course, we're civil service within the police department and the fire department. The fire chief is here, and it's the top 3 people. I stay out of the interviews. I get retired troopers, retired captains, law enforcement people, and I also go with recommendations of their resumes. So that's the way I do it. And maybe it's something that everybody else should look at, but we do have an HR person, and that's why we pay that person for that to at least give us a position and let us know where we're at with who we're hiring and what recommendations they bring and what their resume says. And we should continue to follow that. But Commissioner, I'll be more than happy to take those, look at them, and sit down with Pam, and we'll go from there. Whatever department they belong to, we'll definitely contact that commissioner, and we'll go from there.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you. Anything else, Commissioner?
No, sir.
Thank you. Department of Public Affairs. We're done?
Yes.
Department of Revenue and Finance.
There is an agenda item on here. I'm not sure what it is because I didn't put it on here.
All righty.
So it's the ordinance authorizing the application for Superior, I guess, Brian, that's why you're here.
Mr. Rosenberger's here, and that is an expansion by Superior Walls, I believe, and there's an application for a 5-year tax abatement.
Yeah, this one came in a few weeks ago, and, you know, the end of the year is coming up, so I needed to get it on the next 2 meetings for approval for next year. So I am going to need an ordinance first and second reading the next 2 meetings to get it approved for 2017. So if anybody has any questions, I just figured I would throw it on the agenda for the work session so if there were any questions.
And that looked different than the usual ones that, I don't know, when I read it, it looked different. Was that the standard format that we always have?
The ordinance and the agreement?
Yeah. Okay. All right.
I think Brian Brock sent a resolution, but on the agenda, it is by
Should be an
ordinance. It has to be an ordinance, and it
It's
is
an
by
ordinance.
ordinance.
Okay.
So the
But there was a note on it that you didn't prepare it, so it was in a different format or something? What was
I
that?
think Brian prepared the ordinance.
Brian prepared the.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a
agreement, I think.
template we've been using for years.
Okay,
So I forwarded it to Brock and to Jeannie.
okay. And
So-
I guess in there, they're doing certain jobs and that type of thing. You'll give us the information on,
Yes, in the ordinance, it spells out how many jobs they plan to create over the 5 years, actually over 2 years, I believe it is.
It says 5.
Is
No,
it
I'm
5?
sorry, no, it says taxation for 5 years of the
Yeah,
project.
it's a 5-year.
Brian, if I could, this is a very, very good company who's been doing very well out there on the east side.
They've invested millions of dollars
yes.
in the last 10 years, so yeah, it's good to see that they're expanding.
Correct. Okay. Anything else?
No, I'm just here for questions if you
Anyone have any questions? You just answered mine.
Everyone should have a copy of the application and
I can't get
the ordinance and the agreement. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Anything else, Commissioner?
I just had a couple questions. I didn't know on the ordinance for the compensation for the recreation, what was the, are you changing
That is for Sylvia Stites, who the Housing Authority no longer wants to share in the cost. We were actually paying them to do it anyway, so it's kind of washed. She was, well, I can't say what happened there. I'll tell you that later.
Okay.
But at any rate, they don't want to be involved in that part of it. So it's no additional cost to the city. It's the same
Okay.
cost. It's just a realigning.
So you
it.
just did the range so it would fit the
So it would
cost of
fit the
what we
cost
normally
of what
have?
we, yeah.
Okay. And then
Right, and she'll be an employee of us instead of
Okay.
the Housing Authority.
And I guess the resolution, I know that we were going to get a loan from the $9 million bond for the sewer plant. I guess there's resolutions for that on the
The
agenda.
NGIT.
It was just, I don't know, the way it was worded, I thought that we were getting the loan through them. We have to get our own bond. It was confusing to me. So it's what we thought it was, it's just the way this is worded, so everything's the same.
Yeah, no, I did that one. Okay. Yeah.
So it's an intermediate step, basically.
All right, and then do we know what the rates are or anything? Did they come back for what it is that they're doing for us? So we don't know that yet. Okay. And I think that was like, okay. And what are they're just changing where the handicap is? They're just moving it down the street, the handicap?
For where we're
Parking?
Yeah,
talking.
they're just relocating it. I guess there's some elderly that frequent, I guess, the doctor's office there.
So they're moving, getting
So-
rid of one and
Yeah, and they're
doing
doing
the
it
other
for the elderly that need
Okay.
it.
That was, the other thing I didn't know, we had that house donation
Mm-hmm.
on Oak Street. I didn't know if we were going to discuss that at some point in time. No?
I just,
Well, we're getting it for
Just
free.
forwarded.
Elaborate on this.
Yeah,
Well,
but-
we're not getting it for free.
What are we gonna pay for? Well,
They owe $6,000 on the CDBG loan.
$6,000.
So it would, in essence, what you would be doing would be, I think, forgiving that loan, and in return, you'd be gaining title to the property.
I don't want the property.
What's that, Joe?
He
I don't
doesn't
want the property. What do we need another property for?
Well, maybe you should talk with your veteran folks and see if they'd be interested in obtaining that property.
I didn't know too if I know Pal's looking for a building, if they would be interested in that.
They're interested in another building,
Right,
as you may know,
Yes.
on Main Street.
right.
So
This isn't more in need neighborhood, second. and
absolutely
Oak-
Center City, right?
Yeah, because the other one's on the fringe, which would be nicer, but this
Right.
one is in
Center
a
City.
very bad problem. It's like
Mhm.
it's Oak and Third, the
Mhm.
corner. So, and it's a nice house.
Correct.
It's a shame.
Yeah, I
Right.
think Chief Lippincott wants.
to be heard.
Okay.
Brian had asked me to come because he said this might come up. I'm not going to lobby you one way or another, but if the city did find itself in possession of the house, the fire department could also have use for it. for a training facility. It'd be non-destructive training. We build props and stuff inside of it. Also, the police department would be available for them for like canine training, things like that. So, again, I'm not lobbying you one way or another, but if the city found itself in possession of the house and couldn't find another use for it, public safety could certainly, we could make use of it, and we would upkeep the house and use it probably for a long time for a training facility.
So you say,
Cut any holes in the roof?
yeah,
No, it would be non-destructive training. We
Stand
built
a
some
fire.
props inside. We use like theatrical smoke like they use in the movies to do different search scenarios and things like that. So there would be a use that we would have for it also.
Mike, I'm sorry, Chief, when you say that, you're attacking my budget. You know what I mean? Because they're going to make me pay for it.
Yeah, well, like I said, again, I don't from what I've seen of it, it looks like it's in pretty good shape. So
Yeah, it
It
is.
would mostly
Yeah.
be maintaining it just like maintaining any other residence. Hopefully it
Agree.
wouldn't be a high cost. I mean, we wouldn't need like water and sewer and things like that to it. Again, I'm not one way or another, whatever you decide, but if you find yourself in a position that, yeah, you want to take this house and you're not sure what to do with it, there is another option. I just want to make sure you knew about it.
how often do you use something like that? Is it once a month? Is it?
Well, we train once a week.
Oh,
Every Sunday we have training, so we could certainly work that into our training regime. It would be used on a pretty frequent basis.
but it wouldn't be every week there because you're doing other things in your
Correct.
training.
Correct. But we would probably use it at least once a month. So just another option to consider.
Thank you, Chief.
Yeah, Mayor, if I may, too,
Yes.
Code Blue is continuously having to look for places to give to those who are homeless a shelter. And it would be wonderful if they could finally have a facility, because right now they really depend on space being loaned to them, which sometimes is very challenging because of insurance regulations and so forth. A lot of churches and these personal private properties, they don't really want to get involved with Code Blue. However, Code Blue is a problem. And we have multiple families now living in various places outside throughout the city of Millville. It's better than it has been, but it is still a problem. So it's something you may want to consider. I know they're looking for space, and they need space. So just a thought. Thank you.
Are you talking about them buying it, or what do you, I mean, if
Absolutely.
they're interested, reach out to them, if you know, yeah.
I've suggested it to them before that you need to try to own your properties and provide space that way rather than looking at churches and these buildings, because sometimes people are afraid to open up their doors to.
I believe the issue, if they own the property, is then it turns into a boarding house, rooming house situation. So when they're at the churches, they don't have to get the state permits, which is why they were moving around in only so many days.
You're
There's
right.
a lot more restrictions if they own the property.
You're right, and I think, Lynn, if I'm correct, I think the number of occupants will determine whether or not it is considered to be an institution, whether it's considered to be a boarding house. I think it's the occupancy load that determines that. I think once you hit a certain number, it is no longer considered a residential house. Now you're entering into a boarding house or an institution.
And
of
it's
some sort.
low. I think it's under 5 people. So
Exactly.
they would definitely hit it every time, unfortunately, and then that causes a whole nother set
Unless
of
they could open
problems.
up a few of these houses, which is another thought, I guess.
Well, I think at this point, if we're interested, we'll have our attorney look at it. I think that's probably the best thing to do, Brock. Maybe research the information and come back to us and see what the pros and cons are. And then we can go from there.
I feel very bad for this elderly couple. They're in a tough situation. The only thing, too, it just also brings to mind, we really need to look at how we're approving the CDBG loans, because over and over again, the people are not meeting the requirements of them, and it's a major problem. We've turned over, we've started looking through the loans, and every one we look at, it seems like we're turning it over to the collections attorney. So there's something in that program that wasn't working and needs to be reevaluated.
Okay.
I just had one other question. I saw in the paper about the patrols on High Street.
I was going to mention that, but you're taking all my thunder.
No, it's no
Commissioner. Go ahead.
thunder. Sorry. What I wanted to know is how far down High Street they're going to go, because I'm hoping they won't just stay to Broad Street and they will continue on past Broad Street.
they're going definitely past Broad Street, but I don't want to give you the plan. We'll talk about it afterwards.
Okay.
There should be an announcement in the paper on Wednesday.
Okay.
But you're going to be happy with it. Okay?
Good.
I think everybody's going to be happy with it.
Thank you.
Okay? Anything else? Department of Parks and Public Property.
Well, if we could get the engineer's report. That'd be nice.
Mr. Wayne Johnson.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner, for allowing me to give you the update on the engineering work we completed and the utility updates. I just want to start off with a little positive information. We're finally, after a long wait on the Phase 2 upgrades, we have our pre-construction meeting scheduled for December 13th next week. So we're pretty excited about that. It's been a long time coming. And we're going to be issuing notice to proceed at the meeting. That'll give us 395 days for substantial completion, 455 days to close out the contract, with the contract end date March 13th, 2018. So that's 10 a.m. at the wastewater plant on the 13th for anybody that would like to come. I also like to go through the hydrant readiness report. It's something we're all proud of, how we're staying on top of the hydrants and keeping them ready for the fire department for emergencies. Of the 980 hydrants, 976 are now in service. Our percentage is down to 0.41% out of service. We still have 126 hydrants that are online functioning but have been in a recall from American Darling. We're waiting for the replacement nozzles to be installed by a contractor who was picked by American Darling. And our water utility superintendent's been scheduling that work. We've had all their insurances improved. We're just waiting for the work to commence. But just to get into my update, the Rhonda Drive project I brought with me, what the engineering department's done, they put together a profile of the Cedar Lane. I'm sorry. Oh, no problem. Yeah. It's the Rhonda Drive, the Cedar Lane outfall. This is the outfall on Cedar Lane. This is Rhonda Drive. That's the Moletta manhole. The problem area is that 36-inch pipe from the Moletta manhole out to Cedar Lane has no slope. As you can see, it's pretty flat. The next part will be plotting the hydraulic grade line on there. And then we'll also do this for Rhonda Drive from the manhole by the Moletta easement straight out to the end of Rhonda to evaluate whether we should replace that existing line or put a new line in up Rhonda Drive and connect it to the outfall at the end of the cul-de-sac and improve that. Either improvement to either outfall would probably require DEP permits. We'll be working in the wetlands areas. So right now we're trying to work our way through the engineering. We did do another video of that pipeline from Cedar Lane back gradient towards Rhonda, and we still couldn't get through with the camera. There's sand deposits probably 6 inches high in a 36-inch pipe because of the zero slope in the last section. During the storm flows, the water rushes through there, but as it subsides, the velocities aren't there to carry the soils, and they deposit in the pipe, along with there's construction deficiencies that we found.
So there never was a slope to it?
No. Our best guess is that there was a swale there at some point in time, and the flow was kind of reversed from Cedar Lane back towards Rhonda, towards the low area, and it also came from Rhonda to the same low area, and they just laid the pipe on the existing ground, ending up at zero slope. There's actually a little back slope from Cedar Lane towards Rhonda for a short distance. So we found out a lot of useful information. Unfortunately, that doesn't stop the problem. We have to keep moving forward with a resolution.
But you think if you fix that, that should take care of the problem?
Well, once we go through this engineering exercise of the hydraulic grade line, that'll show us
Then you'll
the
know.
best route to go. Yeah, my instincts are it's to go up Rhonda Drive. While it's working in the roadway, it's probably a little more costly. There's a manhole behind the Moletta property. There's a structure over top of it. We'd have to work through the backyards of people and then still go through the yard on Cedar Lane and then improve that outfall at the end anyway. I'm thinking it's probably like a hydraulic bottleneck. The water comes down Rhonda and it smashes right into the end of the manhole, and that eats up the energy of the flow. So if we just run it straight through, that'll solve a lot of the issues. But we're working our way through that right now.
Great.
And the camera we're demonstrating, because the sewer utility needs to upgrade their camera, so we're kind of doing two things at once, evaluating the cameras and getting useful information out of it. 15th Street Public Works Facility, Brian can update you on the fencing project. Right, Brian?
If you've been out there, the new fencing that's been installed, they put barbed wire on that as well. I was out with a contractor today. We were laying out the gates on the 15th Street side and then on the public parking lot side. We still have to lay out the 14th Street gate, running into some layout issues there, so there may be some revisions with that gate. And that's where we stand on that. And then after they finish the gates, actually tomorrow they may be installing some of the posts for the two that we laid out today. And then after all that work's done, there's some minor fence repairs on the existing fence lines.
Thank you, Brian. The Buck Street sewer main, it kind of slipped off the radar a little bit. We did make a call to our emergency contractor to find out the status of the pricing. They were working on pricing estimates for slip lining sections of High Street and the Buck Street trunk line. So we're waiting for that pricing information to come in to help us decide which way to go on that. And as you recall, there was a sinkhole in front of Winfield's Restaurant on the old 21-inch terracotta clay pipe. The joints were ungrouted, and it caused a sinkhole. There was another one developing further up High Street. We backfilled that one, so we have to keep moving on that project as well. The wastewater treatment plant phase 2, we kind of went into that a little bit. ACOM informed us this week that their basic engineering services, their review of shop drawings, helping with change order tracking, just project management, they're going to be running it out of their Philadelphia office. So Sabria Vincenti has been the project engineer all along. She'll still be available for consulting. There's a new project manager that'll be out of Philadelphia. It's just closer to the project. It'll probably save time and budget money for us because we have to pay travel time when they come down. His name is Gary Huntington. I haven't met him yet, but he'll be on site early today at a pre-construction meeting, so I'll get to meet him then. One little side note, it's kind of a positive thing. We had an addendum to the project, and I'm kind of old school. I don't need a fancy trailer to work out of or all that kind of stuff. I'm working out of the sewer utility office. So in the project, they had a trailer with all the amenities, in it. We took that out by addendum. Mistakenly, the contractor had it in his proposal to the city. So what we're doing is taking that money, we're getting an estimate of the value. It's probably $25,000 to $40,000, somewhere in that range. We're going to put that right on our gives and takes tracking list to help offset any change orders of the project. So it's good. We're starting off on a positive note that way. I just found that out today. The municipal building roof repair. We talked to Craig Alpert today. There was some discrepancies over the roof warranty. We couldn't find the design wind speed on the warranty. We did eventually find it was 90 mile an hour on the manufacturer's warranty. It's a little different than the design wind speed, but not much. The most important issue is that there was a 55 mile an hour limit on Alpert's installer warranty, so he was way off from the 90 mile an hour. So Craig's reaching out to Garland just to determine what the exact warranty wind speed was. We're going to stay on top of that. They both should be the same. So we're working our way through that. A part of the update on the roof repair has been also the curtain wall. I understand that we did order all the sealants, high performance sealants last week. They should be in shortly, and the sealer for the masonry brick. Once that's in, we can get going on that work, just to help seal up the building. I don't know why I keep taking my glasses off. I can't see.
I do the same thing.
High Street paving, to be honest with you, engineering slipped on that. We got so involved in 3rd Street and the other projects, we haven't been able to move forward on the High Street, the handicap ramp design. If you recall, from the last meeting, we have to do individual designs on each ramp because of existing conditions. And I'll keep pushing them to get back on that. 3rd Street seemed to smooth out a little bit, so maybe we can get back on that this week. Ware Avenue demolition project, I sent Commissioner Parecka Campari an email. Delphi has to come back to do some regrading of the crushed building materials they placed just to make it more uniform and smooth. Once they do that, then we can work on final closeout of that project. Also, they have 3 properties we have to look at yet for final the demo restoration: 213 South 2nd, 712 and 714 Buck Street.
How can, that seems to fall through the cracks somehow. I'm not sure where we're is there an easier way to let you know, or an easier process to do? Because it seems like I get an email from the contractor, I'm not getting paid, and then I find out it never got final approval. So there's something wrong, or is there a better way to streamline our procedures so that those things don't fall through the cracks?
I don't know, Commissioner. There's got to be a better way, but I don't know what it is right now.
Because I know when the house is down, like I knew they were down, then we do get the PO or the request for the payment, and then I know I send an email, and then I kind of forget about it. So I didn't know what we could do differently, or if there's a better way to do the process to make your life easier and to let the people get paid when they feel they should need to. Both, because I think what happened on one lot, we had an issue. It was approved from the construction, but then the grading was off, so I think we had decided that you both should go see it. Correct? So they both have to go.
And I understand from preliminary I'm sorry, Regina. I understand from preliminary inspections, there may have been some damage to sidewalk on one of the properties where the demolition was done. I mean, that's going to happen on every one.
I know. Yeah. So I mean, we can play that by ear.
Yeah.
Well, they know they got a permit, so I mean, they know when they get a permit, they have to get final closeout on a permit, correct? So I'm not sure, but I know Commissioner Davis, that seems to be a little glitch in the department that hopefully you can come out with something, or if Wayne, you have a suggestion of how we could do it better.
I would suggest an engineering inspector for grade first, and then the construction official go rather than the other way. Because
maybe that's a good idea.
After he regrades it, then the construction official is going to have to go look again.
Well, we just kind of lose track of the final inspection. I mean, it's the whole.
That's the order in which we ought to do it, which ought to help a little bit.
All
I
right.
think.
So I don't know what process.
The vendor needs to understand that he's got to get the sign-off from the engineering construction official before finance can start.
So maybe when they win the bid, can we add a piece of a little checklist
we
or
can
something?
put something together. Yeah.
But I mean, most of the vendors know you engineer has to sign off on it.
Well, previously when I came in, they weren't even checking the final lots, so nothing was being done. So that's something we did because there were issues. They were sinking and nothing was done, and they weren't graded, and the sidewalks weren't being repaired, and they were just getting paid. So we could change the process from the old way. So
I think if you had a checklist and it had the priority that things are supposed to be done, I think that might help everybody.
Engineer would have to, I mean, I don't know what it is.
yeah, I don't know if we do that, or we add that to when they get the permit. Maybe get the construction department can give them the checklist that you come up
Yeah,
with.
we could come up with a checklist.
And they can clip it. If it's with the permit, then they would know what to do.
It's a good
Right.
idea.
Because construction has to come out during the process too. After demolition and removal of all the materials, they have to do the whole inspection.
Right. They are doing. I know we're doing that now. I don't know what was
But
going on
there's some
before.
confusion, to be honest with you, because the contractors are calling engineering, asking us to do the whole inspection. And I said, we'd be glad to look, but we can't have the final inspection. That's got to come from, the construction department.
So then maybe if Jerry comes up with one, and then
Yeah.
you can look at it, and you guys can okay it.
Or we could reach out to the other towns and see how they're handling it to, eliminate problems like Byron. I'm sure they have the same situation. We can reach out to them and ask them how they handle it.
Don't reinvent the wheel.
Not final. Yeah, I think Jerry probably has one. She should be able to do that.
And it could be as simple as construction officials not filling in for the finance department to get processed. Like, once it's signed off.
Well, they're sending them to me, so I'm forwarding to you. I know that's happening, but then I always send it with a contingency, don't pay until we know we have engineering done and construction official. And then it kind of falls through the cracks somehow.
Finance is waiting just to
Well,
hear
I'm
it's
including
done.
everybody, right, so everybody's in hold. So that's why I think if they have a checklist and you throw it back on the contractor, then, because then I get these emails, you know, and
Thank you, Commissioner. Brian has an update on Four Seasons, right, Brian?
Yeah, out of Four Seasons, the 11 Torresdale Drive, the grading problem out there, the contractor is scheduled to do that, the regrading and landscape work on this Thursday, the 8th. So we'll let the homeowner know about that. I think she already does know, but we'll follow up with her.
Wasn't there a hydrant issue out there too, Brian? A leaking hydrant, we asked them to come in and check that.
Yeah, the same property owner reported a hydrant leak out there, and they're aware of that. And I haven't got an answer back yet, but they're investigating that, whether that's going to have to be replaced, you know, the hydrant or any portion of the main. So that's on their punch list.
And that hasn't been accepted by the city yet, it's still part of the development.
It's not accepted by the city, so they're still paying
I
for it.
thought we did already.
South Millville water main replacement, we have the contractor's payment on the agenda for tonight. There'll be one final payment application that incorporates a change order. Even though the total value of the work was under the bid limit, there were some changes in the construction, and I thought it was proper to finalize it with a change order just to document everything. So once this payment's done, there'll be a change order forthcoming for South Millville water main. Also, there's the issue out there on Columbine of the road restoration. I'll have to work with Commissioner Suey on, you know, how we're going to do road repairs out there without repaving the whole street. There's like 5 areas that are approximately like 20 to 30 feet long by 8 feet wide that have to be repaved, that are there as a result of old water main breaks. We didn't want to turn our water main project into a paving project, so we just restored our trench area and what we disturbed. But there are areas out there we have to, you know, go back over to restore. Wastewater treatment plant operations. Tomorrow there's another NJDEP inspection scheduled at the plant. It kind of comes at last minute notice. Frank Hignut informed me today at 10 a.m. there'll be people from DEP on site. I'm going to meet them there. We don't know what department they're from. It could be that they're from finance, from the trust, coming down to look at the plant, which, you know, happens sometimes before projects. But I'll let you know after the inspection. On November 30th, there was an equipment failure at the plant in the RAS pumping station, the return activated sludge pumping station that returns sludge to the aeration tank as part of the activated sludge process. One of the pumps went down. Unfortunately, there was one pump that's been out of service for over a year and a half. You know, the operations department was trying to stretch out the money. They knew the upgrade was coming, so they didn't replace the pump that was out. Unfortunately, when the number one pump went out, they went to start the next pump, and that failed. So we were in a mode where we had to contact DEP because of a failure of our treatment component. We did that. We have a 6-inch bypass pump set up. We're replacing starters. They had continued problems with the starters. Now they're looking at a VFD, a variable frequency drive, replacing that. The good news is they did get the second pump up as a backup, and the building's back online. On November 22nd, there was a joint NJDEP FDA inspection of the wastewater plant. I never, had that kind of inspection before, but I did determine from discussions with, the people there that it was for the purposes of establishing shellfish restrictions at the mouth of the Delaware Bay and the Morris River. It's not just targeted at our facility, it's every wastewater facility they go around and inspect. They do in Cape May, Bridgeton, the Land Sewerage Authority, all over the area. So they're determining what restrictions they have to place on the shellfishing. They are very interested in our UV disinfection system. They were very knowledgeable in wastewater treatment. They asked a lot of specific questions. They were very pleased to find out that we went back to 3-shift operations at the plant and that we're going through with the project with the new UV system. So we sent them some additional information. They requested GPS coordinates on all our stormwater outfalls and our stormwater pollution prevention plan. We did forward all that information to them. So they're working on compiling all that information into a model to establish that shellfish restriction. Water operations, this is where the real mouthful comes in. Njdep has established new lead copper rules that they sent us a letter November 14th telling us we had to comply with these new rules by January 4th. The short time frame was unheard of. There's no way we could possibly do it in engineering in that amount of time. We have to hire a consultant to help us sort through the regulatory requirements of these new rules. It's very complicated. It involves actually going out in the system, identifying the construction materials of every water main area in the city, the services in the cities, also sending out questionnaires to residences, asking them what their plumbing is in their home, if they know. Also to go through records to find out from old water main breaks or services, what we have. They're looking for lead and copper in our system. It's part of the response to the Flint, Michigan crisis that everybody's heard of. And the DEP took the forefront. They went ahead of EPA to establish these rules. They started with the large water systems up in North Jersey. They had to comply by October 10th or September, I believe. And they sent out notices to the medium water systems, which we are one of them, based on our population size. So we have to comply with this. We also have to have a water quality sampling plan. It's going to require us to go out into the system to establish sampling locations. We're going to be doing samples at 60 locations throughout the city, eventually on a 2-week basis. It's going to drive up our sampling costs tremendously in the water utility. And we have no option but to do our best to comply. We applied for a time extension, but it's already been told by DEP that we'll get no extension. There's significant penalties that could come forth from not complying with this. And it's all as a result of Flint, Michigan. So we're asking the commission to approve a GPM, a contract not to exceed $14,000 to work with the engineering department and the water utility staff to come up with the plans and documents necessary to meet this new lead copper rules. And it's not only in New Jersey, it's an EPA requirement. It's coming across the whole country. And we also have to remove, once we have our plan in place and start the sampling, we have to remove 7% of any lead surfaces or lead in our system that we find every year until it's all out of the system within 15 years. So it's a significant undertaking. It's very complicated. I've been trying to get up to speed on it in a few short days. And I don't think we have any option but to move forward.
I mean, I guess slowly but surely, whether we want to or not, we're going to have to consider whether or not we even maintain our own water and sewer department. To me, honestly, looks like another opportunity for one of these big water companies to come in and just take over. That's kind of what I see, because this is very expensive. And the fact that I don't think we were even made privy to a lot of this prior to last week.
Right.
I don't understand that. I won't say confused, but I'm perplexed at something so significant. How could it be that this municipality had no foreknowledge, was not made privy to such a major issue? Again, I think there's some bigger cards here on the table that eventually will probably force the hand to force us to begin talking about selling the water and sewer department. That's how I'm kind of taking this, honestly.
We weren't the only municipality that wasn't informed in a timely manner.
Yeah.
The City of Island, City of Bridgeton, all those small, medium-sized utilities, they said they sent a letter out, I guess, months ahead of time. I never seen a letter.
Nobody.
I mean, we see everything that comes in. We got a letter dated November 4th on November 15th. That's the first notice we had. There's no way in the world we could possibly meet that deadline. I mean, if I didn't have the wastewater plant project going on, I could jump on it and get on it that way, but we're getting ready to start that, so there's just no way I could get it done.
Well, thanks for trying, Wayne.
Just to show you how complicated the issue is, that the EPA has a quick reference guide on the lead copper rules, and it's so complicated it's hard to decipher.
That's the reference.
That's the cheat sheet. So. We did receive the reports from corrosion control and the above ground storage tank inspections. I haven't had an opportunity to go through the report. I do understand that there's some safety related work that needs to be done to upgrade our ladder, our climbing systems, because they're old and there's newer standards in place now. Some of them have just started to deteriorate. Some of them no longer meet the safety standards. So I'll be going through that. And we'll also have to have work done on that and come up with a plan. There's some recommendations for power washing the airport storage tank, just to get the mold off the side of the tank and the growth to protect the paint system. There's recommendations for painting in the report, but I haven't been able to go through it in detail yet. The Wheaton property, 200, 300 G Street. We had a call today from Fraser Thompson. He's one of the, I guess, the managers at Rio Tinto. They wanted to do an inspection today, just a walkthrough to look at the Ada Pond, getting ready for the remediation. We had someone from engineering go out there. They filled out the entry form and found out what they were doing there and just let them onto the site just to keep that moving. I also had a call from Franklin Reisenberger today. I wasn't able to get back to him, but I'll call him tomorrow morning. I did try to call him back today. Apparently, I don't know, he seems to be calling somehow the city hall, and it gets shifted somehow to my voicemail. So I don't know how that happens. He doesn't call engineering. It seems like he calls another department. He said he's been calling for a few days. We're trying to sort that out, too, to get to the bottom of it.
Phone system mess up for engineering, it's going right to voicemail, I'm going engineering. Tell Mike or whoever. Thank you.
The Sherwood Forest Detention Basin, Brian's taking over that project. We're directing the developer to make the remediation or repairs to the detention basin. As we discussed during the last meeting, it's been dragging on for so long. We just need to force their hand to get them moving on that, to get it done. But you have anything else on that, Brian?
We're just going to look at the bond, update the amounts on that to include the revised, the design of the basin, and come up with a new bond amount. And upon renewal, then we're looking at updating that amount. So that'll include all the improvements.
Brian, will that be an increase in the amount of the bond?
Likely, yeah.
Right, not a decrease, right?
So they're going to add on to it. They're going to have to add on to it then.
Right, yeah, the original cost of the basin, or the new cost of the basin is more than what was the original.
Because they were asking for money back recently, weren't they?
They wanted the bond reduced, and I think I
Reduced.
saw correspondence from Brian saying no.
Yeah, so they'll be happy when you give them that.
Yeah.
10th and F Street, I've been speaking with Brock about the easement out there on the property where our storm sewer crosses beneath. I guess we're recommending that we don't need another easement at this point, right, Brock?
Well, the owner provided us with his back title, and it looks like we already have an easement. And he took title to the property, or his predecessor did, from Bond Grocery Company, subject to the city's easement. So it goes back a long way.
And while we're talking about easements, it leads us to the Marlin Terrace stormwater system. I was meeting with Robin Hitchner and left them a set of plans. They got back to us. They're okay with the new pipe alignment. They would like to see just a rough restoration plan of what we're going to do behind their house when they're done. So we'll just put something together and show them, what kind of trees we're going to plant, those kind of things. There is another issue that popped up from the information that Mr. Hitchner gave us, is that there's two twin 24-inch concrete lines off the state highway. One of them runs on Mr. Hitchner's property. One runs on a neighboring property. Our records and drawings indicate they're both on Mr. Hitchner's property. So having said that, that means we have to probably get another easement on the property to the east. Unfortunately, Bob Thomas is out for knee surgery, so I haven't been able to get him back on it. I spoke to Commissioner Sui today about, we might be able to get out there to do some, interim remediation to remove those 12-inch pipes to help lower the overflow elevation on Marlin. Because I'm getting concerned that, the winter months are here. As soon as we get into the rain, we're going to have issues again. I mean, we've done a lot of work, found out a lot of information, but that doesn't solve the problem in the street. So we need to keep moving forward on that. Field of Dreams, I think Brian has some information on that.
We went out the weekend after Thanksgiving to do some sound tests. We did 5 sound tests along the wall, on each side of the wall. Zoning officer, he's downloading the data, but generally looking at the meter, there was a drop. There were some areas where there was a drop of 7 decibels, but the other ones were between 10 and 13 decibel drop. And it appeared to be where there was where the ground was, there was a gap under the wall. That seems to be where the one low reading was. So that's where those readings stand.
What was the sanitary sewer connection that was made on site?
That I met with the owner out there as well. That was for the restrooms, and actually that is hooked up.
To city sewer?
Yes.
So that's good news.
Yes. So they're tied in. It's operating.
Great.
Yeah.
That's good. I'm happy.
Ryan, when you're talking about the sound, so are they below the regulations?
No.
Or they're above? That one reading they didn't make it on. I mean, my guess is they would, if they fill the gaps in under the wall, you probably have to retest it and see that it would match the.
And they've been advised of that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't given the official word. I mean, I talked to the manager afterwards I talked to the owner afterwards and told him the results. So,
okay.
So that
so
might
they're
be
aware.
likely. Yeah, that'd be
and
a likely
we've
course of
documented
action.
that.
Yes.
Very
yes.
good.
And what do they fill it? They don't fill it in with dirt because that can go away. They have to make the actual whole wall lower.
That would probably be mounded up. I mean, they could regrade to bring the grade up.
But that wouldn't be
There.
permanent, so the sound wall doesn't have to be permanent. Because when it rains and the cycles run and the stuff that happens at a cycle track, that won't stay there forever. Because otherwise all they have to do is go through 2 shovelfuls, split through a dirt, and they're good to go.
No, I mean, there's along the wall that you can see where they build up in some areas where it would have to be a permanent regrading there. I mean, they would have to.
So are we just talking about dirt? Are we talking about rock? Are we talking about stones? How would they do it?
Probably some type of, maybe like a DGA or.
Say it again, I'm sorry.
Maybe like a DGA, some type of stable ground material.
It would just stick together?
Yeah. Something that wouldn't wash away.
Okay.
Yeah.
One thing, I don't mean to interrupt, Brian, but You know, I have downloaded a free sound app on my phone, and right now we're about 70 decibels speaking. So I think that the readings that actually failed that Brian had out there, that the readings were only in the 60s. So
And we're in the 70s.
yeah, so that could have something to do with it. I mean, if it's not there to reduce it down. Some of the higher readings, what were they, Brian? 80s, 81, 82. So that could have something to do with it, the low ones. I mean, I wasn't there, unfortunately, but just thought you should know that. The readings we have weren't in those high ranges. It could be because how far they were from the track, I'm not sure. At the sound wall, from the looks, it looks like you're not, adjacent to the motocross track. You're out in the woods.
Right.
But just speaking here, we're in the 70s, so to have a 10 decibel drop, maybe it doesn't work that way. I don't mean to interrupt you,
No,
Brian.
you're good, Wayne.
And the restoration under the wall, they could do it a number of different ways. With dense graded aggregate, they could bring in soil and they could plant, a cover on it, grass cover to make it withstand the rain and the elements. So there's different options. I don't know if one's really better than the other, as long as they establish cover. Have to be in accordance with NRCS standards. They have to bring in gravel anyway to bring it up, then topsoil and seed and fertilize. And they could probably put erosion mat down to make sure it doesn't erode. And I have to apologize, Commissioner, I couldn't make it out there. I know you were disappointed. And it wasn't that I was home eating Thanksgiving dinner. I was building a greenhouse on my farm, so I couldn't make it.
And then what happens then? They'll come back to open up for business in the fall. So what happens?
I guess we'll have them do the rework and have to retest.
But you can't test till they're open because you
Till
need to
they're
have
open.
them erase.
Right.
So we can what's the shortest period we can give them another temporary CO for?
I don't know. We'd have to look into that.
Check and see what the shortest period possible is.
Usually, typically 30 days.
So you would give them a month temporary in theory, and then,
But then we won't be able to retest because they won't have any races.
so when they have their race,
We can retest.
then you'll retest, and then if they pass or don't pass, then they would finally get their final.
So we could give them 30 days to correct the deficiencies under the wall.
Because they're
That's-
closed now till spring, correct?
Is that right, Brian? They're closed?
Yeah, I know that was their last race. I don't know if they still do practices, but I don't know their official closing date. I believe they are.
The Manor Estates Stormwater Basin, I don't think there's been any
We're waiting,
progress
we're
on that.
waiting for the machine.
Waiting for
Where are we at with
equipment.
that? I know there was an email today, but I didn't read it.
March, they gave it credit back, it's not filled out. They didn't say.
Give my account, city's account numbers. I'll fill it out the best I can. But we just don't have anyone taking money out of our account.
Correct. I understand that. So we'll work that out. So once we get that machine, then for those that don't know, we tried other machines, but they got stuck. This thing's kind of amphibious, and it either floats or works on tracks one way or the other. So, or both ways actually, but whatever way it needs to work, and that'll take care of those problems out there. So we're just waiting on that stuff.
Okay.
What's that? Correct. All right.
All right, I guess the next, the most important project left is the 3rd Street Road reconstruction. I don't know if you recall, we were off to a bumpy start with that project because of traffic controls, differences between the way the contractor wanted to run the project. We're finally all on the same page. Things seem to be proceeding fairly smoothly right now. Brian's out there every day. We have a full-time inspector on the job just to make sure we're getting our money's worth out of the project. They're working on curbing restoration right now, ripping out the old curb and doing reconstruction. Still working on the inlets. Once that's done, they'll start with the paving. You have anything else on that, Brian?
Yeah, they were out there today. They started their the concrete sidewalk and curbing, and then yeah, so and that's probably about from Broad to Oak. They have probably about 3/4 of a block completed for that.
I also think I have to step back. I thought this was before the last meeting. We had the incident on site where the truck hit the tree in front of the properties. I think it was 214 3rd Street. During the lane shift process, we moved traffic over towards the west curb line. Unfortunately, the height of the trees was too low for the large semi-trailers to come through there. We probably had a WB 64 from Strickland Trucking in Bridgeton come through. He was too close to the curb line. He hit one tree in front of a house, I think it was 218. He kept going, and then he hit another tree in front of like 212. He ripped down 2 electrical services, knocked the tree down onto the porch of a home, also hit a pole and knocked the pole, probably 4 feet out of vertical plumb. So he hit it pretty hard, the last tree. We had to do emergency work to get the road back opened up, to get the services restored. It was the day before Thanksgiving. So we had to make sure that people had power and get the road opened back up. We did go back out and reevaluate the lane shifts. We're doing all the lane shifts in accordance with manual and uniform traffic control. We had 12-foot wide lanes. The contractor had a 16-foot wide construction area. We reduced his construction area to allow us to shift those lanes back to the east to get them further away from the curb line. We haven't had any issues since, now that we know the watch for that. I think it's a situation that's in every city. I've been looking in Bridgeton and Vineland when I'm driving around, and if you look near the parking areas where the cars park, the trees are lower. When they get out in the travel lane, they're higher to get naturally trimmed from the truck traffic hitting the little branches. So it's lesson learned. I wish I seen that one coming. I think that's the end of our update, Commissioners. I'm sorry it's so long and involved, but thank you.
Thank you, Wayne.
Wayne, thank you. Very good report. Brian also, thank you so much.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Just a couple other things, Mr. Mayor. We're getting an energy audit done in order to qualify for, at no cost to the city, for a grant for green energy, changing LED bulbs and stuff like that. First to the police station, because they're our largest consumer, and City Hall, Fire Department, Library, and our RCA building. So it's a 70% matching grant for the actual work that we've done, so we're checking into that.
That might give us points for the green team, which also helps us get other grants.
Right, so,
So I guess you should have to give that information, I think, to Diane.
okay.
The
once we
green
get
team,
the-
yeah.
Okay, once we get the audit done. And the other thing is, the RCA building, we have the estimate on that, working on the bid specs. Once the bid specs are done, we get those done for free by the roofing company. Not the company that does the work, but the company that actually makes material for them, for the engineering for review. And that's it.
Excellent. Thank you, Commissioner. Department of Public Safety, we have a lot going on. First of all, my thoughts and prayers go out to the New Jersey State Trooper that we lost last night, and also the driver of the second vehicle. It was a horrific accident. I was contacted immediately by Captain Bear. Had the opportunity to go out to the Bridgeton Barracks this morning and sit down with the troopers there and give my condolences to the troopers of that squad. I have to give kudos and thanks to Dunkin' Donuts, our local Dunkin' Donuts. They were advised, and they did donate some donuts and coffee and bagels that we were able to transport over to the barracks for those that were there. In addition to that, the Commissioner has talked about what we're starting on Thursday. Thursday, we're going to start a walking patrol on High Street from the police department north up to Wheaton Plaza. In addition to that, we're going to have our M9, which is our large bus that we have that's going to be manned. That bus has cameras on it that can see at a great distance. We are going to be moving that van along High Street. It's just not going to sit in one location. With that, the officers that are going to be on walking patrol, they're going to be going in and talking to our business owners. They want to know what our business owners are talking about, what we need to do for them, what do they see where we can help them, and what is it that we're not doing. So we're going to get a report back from that. I had the opportunity to go to New Jersey Motorsports Park, and I believe Commissioner Davis, I saw him, I was coming out, he was coming in. What a great project where they collected coats for kids. There was a great group of kids there. I can't give you the amount, but there was a lot of kids there, a lot of coats to be given. What a great project that they had, and I thought that was awesome. How about our football team? Excellent. South Jersey Group 5 champions. I had the opportunity to go to the game. I had the opportunity to speak with some of the coaches and some of the players. Just an outstanding performance. But the best part about it is that our team just showed the utmost professionalism after they won during the game. It was very exciting. It was very exciting to see a lot of our community there. That was really exciting. And as you know, we're working on having some type of special event for them you'll know in the next few weeks that we're going to have a special event so that we can celebrate our championship with our football team. I think that'll go a long, long way. With that progress, any new business? Commissioner Davis?
No, not at this time.
Commissioner Sui?
No.
Commissioner Ennis?
No.
Commissioner
No, sir.
Perry? No, sir. Wow. I now open up the meeting to public comment. Anyone that would like to address the commission, please come up to the mic, state your name and your address, and limit your comments to 5 minutes, please. Seeing no one, I close the public portion part of this meeting. We just went through the commissioners with no comments. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second? This meeting's adjourned. See you at the next meeting. Thank you.